Hello everybody and welcome to this instruction video. In this video I'd like to show you how to make the Kizzy blanket. This blanket has been designed by Maria from 50 Shades of 4-ply. In this video I'd like to show you everything you need to know how to make this blanket. Now, which materials and supplies do you need? We're going to be using or at least I am going to be using Scheepjes stone washed yarn. That's also the yarn that Maria uses in the blanket. I'm purposefully showing you here only half a ball, and this is also half a ball, because this blanket is actually perfect to use stone washed yarn that you have left over from other projects that you've used this yarn for. So this is a really good project to use all those bits and ends that you have left over from other projects. Otherwise, also feel free to get yourself some few new balls and shades that really work for you. With the Scheepjes stone washed yarn, I'm using a 3.5mm hook to show you how to work all the squares. Now, in this video, you're going to be showing you a few things, and I'd like to work with you what exactly is all going to be in this video. In this video, you're going to find a few chapters, a few sections. And in the video description, you'll also find the timestamps where each of these sections start. I'll start the video by showing you the stitches that are being used. I'm assuming that you've never crocheted before, and I'd like to show you how to make the basic stitches that is being used in this video. Also note that these stitches are being made in UK terms. These are different from, for example, US terms. So note that I'm using UK terms in this video to make the stitches and to explain the stitches to you. After that, I'll show you the squares, how to make one square, both the small squares and the large squares. After the squares, there'll be a section on working away yarn tails, because if you've never done that before, it's just good to know a few tips and tricks about how to work your yarn tails away properly. I'll also show you how to block your work. Blocking is about making your squares look crisp and neat, and I'll show you what you need to do that and how to do that. When your squares are all finished, you of course have to join them all up. I'll show you the joining techniques used in this video. One of them is the same as that Maria uses in the pattern, but I also use a second technique that Maria does not use because I feel it's more suitable to beginners. And finally, we're going to finish off with the border. The border I use is again a different one to one that's in the pattern, because I believe this border is more suitable for beginners, the one that I'm going to show you, whereas the one in the pattern is maybe for the more adventurous. So go through all the sections of the blanket. I'll show you the stitches, the squares, yarn tails, blocking, how to join them all together, and how to work a simple double crochet border. If we look at the blanket, you'll notice that I've made a simple double crochet border. This is because I feel this border is more suitable for beginners. If you're feeling adventurous, please do make the border that's in the pattern, and I would like to refer you to the written pattern for that. For the moment, I'm going to be using a simple border for my blanket. You'll also notice that the border, or the join, let me say, that I've used here is different to the one that's in the pattern, again because I feel this border is easier for beginners. If you want to use the one that's in the pattern, absolutely do so. So I'll take you step by step through all the elements that are happening in this blanket, and I want to thank you for watching, and I hope it's a useful video for you. To make this blanket, we're going to make squares, large squares and small squares. The large square is the same size as 4 small squares. So if I have 4 small squares, this is the same size as 1 large square. Now you can decide how many small squares you want and how many large squares you want, how you're going to make the layout. That's all up to you, and you can play with that. So do keep in mind that 4 squares need to be in a multiple of 4. The small squares need to be in a multiple of 4, and then the large squares, they're of course on their own. The pattern for this is the same. This is 3 rounds of the pattern, and this is 6 rounds of the pattern. And I'll be showing you the 6 rounds, and then to make a small square you simply use stop earlier. So have a think about your layout, how many large squares you need and how many small squares you need. Before we actually start with the pattern, I'd like to show you a few basic stitches. I have here a small piece of crochet fabric. Don't worry about how I made this. A few things that you need to know. How to hold your hook. Now, there are two ways of doing that. Some people like to hold their hook like a pen, like this. And some people like to hold their hook more with like a thumb grip, like this. This is how I hold my hook. Now, it doesn't matter which way you hold it, as long as you don't get any cramps. If you've got cramps in your hands, you're holding your hook too tight, so then relax. So I've got my hook like this, so I'm really steering it with my thumb. And some people prefer to hold their hook more like this, as though you're writing with a pen. And some people even hold them more like this. Doesn't matter how you hold your hook, just make sure it's a relaxed grip. Second thing that's important is if you look at your yarn. I'm just going to zoom out a little bit because you can see my hand better, is how you hold your working yarn. This is how I hold my yarn. And then I control the tension with my index finger, like this. Show you that again. I scoop it with my pinky finger. And then I turn and under and over my index finger. Again. Scoop, twist, under and over. If you don't immediately get the hang of this, don't worry. What you don't want to do is having your yarn like this somehow with your fingers. This is going to give you uneven tension. Is going to give you cramp in your hands. So I have it like this, and then as I work, let's say I'm working, you can see the yarn will roll through my hands, and that's exactly what you want. You want the yarn to be able to just roll through, and then to control my tension, I move my finger, this index finger, I move it up and down. So I hold my yarn and I work like this. Now let me show you a few stitches. I'll zoom in a bit. We're only going to be using 4 stitches. The first stitch I'd like to show you is a treble crochet. And again, note I'm using UK crochet terms in this video. In UK crochet terms, a treble crochet looks like this. You have the loop on your hook. For the moment, don't worry how you get that loop. When we start, I'll show you how to get your first loop. And when you've got the first one, the rest will come automatically. Going to yarn over on your hook. And it doesn't matter if you do it like this or like this. Just be sure you do it consistently. I scoop like that. So you've got to yarn over on your hook. Then hold onto that loop. And then in your fabric you see these little V's. This is a stitch. Insert your hook through both of those little loops. And then pick up the yarn from the other side and bring it towards you. You now have 3 little loops on your hook. You see how I'm controlling the tension with my index finger. Then scoop up your yarn and pull through the first 2 loops. This third one you're going to leave on the hook. And again, scoop up your yarn and pull through 2 loops. This is a treble crochet. I'll show you once more. Yarn over. Insert in your stitch, grab your yarn, bring it to the front, yarn over, pull through 2 loops, yarn over, pull through 2 loops. That was a treble. Another stitch that I would like to show you is a chain stitch. We're also going to be using a lot of that. A chain stitch is hook up your yarn and pull it through your loop. That's a chain 1. Again, yarn over and pull through. I now have made 2 chains, for example. So chain is very easy. Yarn over and pull through. Another stitch I'd like to show you, I'm just going to rotate my fabric, is a double crochet. I'm just quickly going to undo these chains because they're going to confuse you. And I'll hook up my loop again. And then I'll continue on this side. A double crochet. A double crochet, no yarn overs or anything. Insert your hook into the stitch, pick up your yarn, bring it to the front. You now have 2 loops on your hook, yarn over and pull through. That's a double crochet. Again, insert, pick up your loop, bring to the front. I've got 2 loops on your hook, yarn over and pull through. You see, these 2 here are double crochets and those stitches are trebles. I've now taught you trebles, chains and doubles. The chains, I pulled those out. The last stitch you need to know is a half double. And a half double is insert your stitch, insert into the stitch, pick up the loop, bring it to the front, but now you're going to push this loop immediately through that loop, so no extra yarn overs, and pull through. That's a half double. Again, insert, pick up the loop, bring to the front and immediately pull through. That's a half double. So those 4 stitches you need to know. I'll show you them every time we use them. But it's a treble, a double, a half double and a chain. These are the 4 stitches we're going to be using, and if you can do these 4, you can do this entire blanket. For round 1, any random color, I'm going to make a slip knot over one another and then bring the loop in, make a slip knot, and this I'm going to put on my hook. Now we're ready to start. Chain 4. 1, 2, 3, 4 chains. And now we're going to come back to this first chain we made and going to work a slip stitch, and that will make a little ring. So in that little loop, make a ring. Now if you open up, look inside, you see several gaps, and the one right there in the middle, one where my nail is poking through, that's the hole you want. So we're going to work in there, going to work our first round. Chain 3, this counts as the first treble. Then yarn over, and then in that little gap, so open it up, you can really see the little gap, see in there, and then take off 2 loops, take off 2 loops. That's the first treble. Yarn over, and again take off 2, take off 2. Now, those are 3 trebles. Chain 2, and this we're going to repeat, so 3 trebles in the ring, and it gets easier to work in that ring as you have more and more stitches in there, because then it's clear where the ring is. 3 trebles, and again chain 2. Again, in the ring, 3 trebles. So you're now working the third side of the square. 2, and this is 3, and then chain 2. And now the fourth side. In the ring, 3 trebles. 1, 2, 3, chain 2. To close, I'm going to come to the top here of the beginning 3 chain and work a slip stitch. So in there, poke your hook in and work a slip stitch. There. This is the first round, and after every round you can cut your yarn, so we're going to work a new color on every round. So cut your yarn and then just open up this loop, so just pull that through. After we've worked the square, I'll show you how to work away all these yarn tails. So we're just going to hold on to them for a moment, and then at the end I'll show you how to work them away. So this is round 1. Round 2, I'm going to take a random new color, and we're going to start in a chain 2 corner space. Now it doesn't matter which space we choose, because this is the one where we finish with. You see the yarn tail is here. I'm actually going to take the space before it, and that way I'm going to, every time I'm just going to move one space up. So I'm going to start in this one here. So and insert your hook. This is the yarn. We're going to attach that with a slip stitch. So I'm just going to have it to the back here, then grab the yarn and bring it up through the chain, through the space. You're going to have to hold on to this yarn tail until you've made your first few stitches. So I've got everything squished between my fingers, it doesn't go anywhere. Now do a chain 3, 2, 3. This is the first treble. You can see now that you can let go of this yarn tail. Now it isn't going to go anywhere anymore. Then in this chain 2 space, going to work 2 more trebles. So that's 1, yarn over, make a second one in the same space. So now again you have 3 trebles here. Chain 1. Now we're going to skip these 3 stitches here in the middle and going to come to the next corner space. So it's that stitch here. So this little space here. Never mind this yarn tail, you can just ignore that. And then in this chain space, going to work 3 trebles, chain 2 and 3 trebles. So yarn over in the space. This is the first treble, this is the second. And one thing you'll notice is I'm continuously moving my hands up to the position where I'm working. And I'm doing that to keep my tension even. So that's a chain 2, and now 3 more trebles in this same space. And I'm doing that to keep my tension even and my stitches even and neat. Because we're now working, you see here's the slip stitch from the previous round. It could be that as you work here that this opens up, that could happen. So just pull at that yarn tail just to keep it nice and closed. So I'm just going to see, I've just grabbed it there with my finger. So that's 1 treble, this is the second, and this is the third. So that's a full corner you just worked. Chain 1, rotate your work, and now we're going to come to this chain 2 space, and here we're going to work exactly the same as we did here. So 3 trebles in this space. So 1, 2, 3 trebles, chain 2, and again 3 trebles. So 1, 2, and 3. And repeat again. So chain 1. The chain 1 is to skip those 3 stitches so that you've got enough room to come to the next chain 2 space where you're going to work another corner. So that's 3 trebles. So 1, 2, 3 trebles, chain 2, and again 3 trebles in that space. 1, 2, 3. Chain 1, And now we're back at the corner where we started. So you already have like half the corner in there. So you only need to work 3 trebles and a chain 2. So 3 trebles, so that's 1, 2, 3 trebles, chain 2. And again here at the top, so you've got here the 3 chains, so at the top there insert your hook, pull your yarn tight that you get these nice close together, and make a slip stitch. Cut yarn and open up this loop exactly like you did in the previous round. Now you've done 2 rounds. You see here your yarn tails at the back, don't worry about them, you'll get rid of those at the end. So now you've done 2 rounds, time for the 3rd one. Round 3, it's going to be the same idea, but I'll show you this round again. A new color yarn, any random color. This is where the corner where we ended, or started, depends on how you look at it. So I'm going to take the corner before that, but again this is arbitrary, you can start on any corner. Insert your hook in that corner space and pick up yarn, same as in the previous round. Hold on to everything that it doesn't move and chain 3, followed by 2 trebles in the same space. It's 1 and 2. Half of the corner made. Chain 1. Let's just skip these 3 stitches here. Now you've got the chain 1 space from the previous round. In that space here, poking my finger through it, work 3 trebles. So 1, 2, 3. Chain 1. And skipping these next 3 stitches, we're going to come to the corner. And here's again the join from the previous round, so I'm just going to hold on to that this doesn't open up. So I'm just going to hold on to that tail there. Then in the space, a corner. So that's 3 trebles, chain 2, and 3 trebles. So 1, 2, 3, chain 2, and 3 more trebles. 1, 2, 3. You've now done an edge and a corner. I'm going to repeat this on all the other sides as well. I'm going to take you all the way around here, but as the rounds get longer, for when you have 4, 5, or 6 rounds squared, I won't show you the full repeats anymore because that just takes a lot of time. So I'm going to chain 1, but this round I'll show you the full round. In the space, work 3 trebles. So it's yarn over, insert, pick up a loop, take off 2, take off 2, 2, 3. Chain 1. Next up is the corner, so that's 3 trebles, 2, 3, chain 2, and 3 more trebles in the same space. 1. That gives you a new. Do that again. 1, 2, 3. Chain 1 and repeat. 3 trebles in this space here in the middle. It's 1, 2, 3. Chain 1, and now we're up to a corner again. So that's 3 trebles. 1, 2, 3 trebles. Chain 2. And it's 1, 2, 3 trebles. Chain 1, have the chain space here, so again 3 trebles in there. So you're always working 3 trebles. And sometimes you'll have a chain 1, like now, chain 1, and sometimes you'll have a chain 2 when you're working a corner. This is the final bit, so there's only the 3 trebles, 2, only 3 trebles, chain 2, and again close here at the top of that 3 chain. Just poke your hook in, and that's it. Cut the yarn and open up your loop. And this is the first 3 rounds of the square. Round 4, so this round is only for the slightly larger squares. Again, a random color. Here's where I finished, so I'm going to just go to one corner before, insert my hook and attach yarn with a slip stitch. Hold on to everything until you've made your first few stitches. Chain 3, and then in the chain space 2 more trebles. 1 and 2. Chain 1, then skipping these 3 stitches, here in the chain space work 3 trebles. 1, 2, 3. Chain 1, skipping these 3, in the next space work 3 trebles. 1, 2, I need more yarn, and 3. Chain 1, and now you're at a corner again, and here 3 trebles, chain 2, 3 trebles in the same space. So this corner is always the same. Chain 2 and 3 trebles. Pull that closed. This corner leads to the next edge, so and then you're going to repeat this side here. So I'll show you this side, and when I'm at this corner I'm going to make a jump to the end of the round. So chain 1, in the next chain space here work 3 trebles. So 1, 2, 3 trebles, chain 1, in the next space work 3 trebles, 1, 2, 3, chain 1, here a new corner. So again 3 trebles, 2, 3 trebles, chain 2, and 3 trebles. 1, 2, and 3. There we go. And then this edge here, you're now going to repeat there again, work a corner, and then come down. So there's 3 trebles, chain 1, 3 trebles, chain 1, and then here I'll just turn it like this. When you're coming back up, going to work the second half of that corner, so there's a 3 trebles and the chain 2. I'm just going to work this edge and this edge, and I'll just show you the last corner and the join again. I'm almost round. See, I've worked the other edges. Work these last 3 trebles, then chain 1, and now I just need to finish the corner. So 3 trebles in this space. 1, 2, 3, chain 2, and close on the top of the starting 3 chain with a slip stitch. cut your yarn, open up this loop, and that completes the first 4 rounds. Round 5, again very similar, random color yarn, in any chain 2 corner space attach with a slip stitch. Chain 3 and 2 more trebles. So this is the beginning corner that we've always been making. For your first straight edge, in every space work 3 trebles and 1 chain in between. 1 chain, come to the next space and 3 trebles. It's 1, 2, 3 trebles, 1 chain, next space 3 trebles, 1, 2, 3, 1 chain, come to the next space, 3 trebles, 1, 2, 3 trebles, chain 1, and your next space is a corner. So in here, the same corner as we've done before, 3 trebles, chain 2, 3 trebles in the same space. That's 1, 2, and 3, chain 2, and 1, 2, 3 trebles. There we go. And this corner is the start of the next edge. So on this edge, you're going to repeat what you've already done here. So again, these 3 groups of 3 trebles with chain 1s in between. And at this corner, you repeat that corner. So everything we've just done, so this edge in the corner, repeat that 3 more times. Here on your last corner, I'll turn like this, you'll work the half corner, the chain 2, and then closing here on that first chain 3 with the slip stitch, exactly the way we've done before. So go all the way around, and then you've finished round 5 already. Yes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then I'll just show you round 6, the start of that as well. Round 6, final round of this large square, and it's the same idea. We're going to work a corner, and then in every chain space work 3 trebles and chain 1s in between. I'll show you the first edge and then the other edges you can do without me. So we're going to start again with a slip stitch attaching yarn, any random color, chain 3, and then 2 more trebles in the same space, and 2, chain 1, and then in the next space work 3 trebles, 2, 3, and now you have, of course, chain 1, you have 1 group more than you had on the previous edge. So for this pattern we're only going to work 6 rounds, but you can see how it could be easily, how you could make this square larger by just repeating the same idea. So every round your corners are the same, and along the edge you simply have 1 more group of these 3 trebles, 1 more granny group. But the idea is very classic and easy to make this square as large as you want. Last corner, so I just did the chain 1, and now work a full corner. So that's 3 trebles, chain 2, and 3 trebles. And that was the first edge. And I'm going to repeat the same on your other 3 edges. After you come round, work the second half of the corner, chain 2, and then close on the first stitch with the slip stitch, and you can again cut your yarn. When you've finished your square, this is what your square looks like from the front, but of course at the back you still have all these yarn tails. Work them away right now that you've finished the square, because you're going to really hate this when you've got all of this mess and you've got all those squares. You need to do everything at once. So after each square, take the discipline and work away these yarn tails. I'm going to show you how to work out the tail from the middle. So that's this one. I'll show you one of these on the edges, on one of the rounds, because they're all the same. And then I'll show you the last one as well. That will be this one here. Actually, I think I'm going to start with that one. I'm going to start from the outside in. So I'll show you how to work away these different yarn tails one by one. So this first yarn tail, the one that's from the outer round, you've got the slip stitch there. I'm going to thread this on my needle. Now to work away this yarn tail, what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip it over. And I'm going to just go pick up 1 or 2 loops and bring this down here to this thicker part where I have more stitches. And I'm going to hold my finger on the place where I'm pulling the yarn through. That's so that I have more control of what I'm doing. And I'm not going to pull it tight, because if you pull it tight you're going to get a dent there. This is now what it looks from the front. So I'm going to leave it like that. And now this yarn tail, if I rotate my work, I'm going to work away underneath these stitches. And I came out here, so I'm just going to go back 1 loop and push underneath. And pull through, and again I've got my finger on whenever I'm pulling through, and then push back. And so this is where I came out, so I'm just going to go into underneath the next loop, so this will catch this loop coming back. And I always tend to go back and forth at least 3 times. I may be a bit paranoid in that sense, but and then once more, pushing back in on itself. There we go. And now you can cut this yarn tail, and then from the front you can almost see nothing. Then a second yarn tail. Now all of these ones here in the middle, they're all the same idea. So this one, for example, and this one here, they all have the same idea. They're worked over the chain space from the previous round. So this one, let's for example take this one here, because it doesn't really matter which one I take. I'm going to take this one. I'm going to show you how to work that away. So the other way around. I'm going to thread this yarn on. And then what I'm going to do is again, so it comes out from underneath this loop. I'm just going to push back. And what's very important here is that you don't see the needle from the front at all, because then you won't see the thread from the front either. Push through. And again, back. And a third time. And if you're really, really paranoid, you can even do a 4th time. And this piece of fabric here becomes a bit thicker because you're pushing the needle back and forth, but you won't notice that when you use it, when you use the blanket. And now you can cut off, because nothing will happen to it. And this idea you can do for all of these other threads, because they all work in exactly the same way. And then I'll just show you this one here in the middle, because this one's again slightly different. So the thread right in the middle. So this is the very first one we started with. I'm going to thread this on my needle. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to start by just going a little bit in the round. And if you have a very slight gap in there, that'll also help you to close that gap. So I'm just going to go further in the round. And I'm going to pull on the thread. I've got my thumb on here while I'm pulling so I don't break the yarn. But that process actually closes this gap. And then I'm going to push further. And now I've basically come full circle, because remember we started here. So now I'm just going to push back. And one more time. Going back on itself. And again, now this is pretty secure. Also the stonewash is nice and sturdy yarn, so it can handle quite a bit. And cut off. And now you've worked away this yarn tail here in the middle. I still have a few other tails to do. I'm going to do those tails and then I'll show you how to block your work. When you've made all your squares and you've got all the squares you want, it's a good moment to block these squares, because you're going to see that they're not very crisp. They're round. You'll see the edges curl in a little bit, and blocking them will actually straighten this out and flatten your square. I'm going to show you how to do blocking. Now, what do you need to do this? You of course need your squares. I'm going to work with them in a moment, but you also need a few other things. I've got here blocking pins. Now, if you don't have blocking pins, you can also use regular pins, but you need something to pin the squares down with. Then you need something to pin it on, and I've here got a rubber mat, and this is the type of mat that you also find in, for example, sports stores, that they have this underneath the equipment. So this is nice and thick. You can really, it's a foam. You can really pin the needles into this. So I've got quite a few of these. I bought them at a store. You can buy a lot of cheap stuff, and this is actually to be used in a gym underneath sports equipment. So you need something to pin your squares on, and then you also need something to make them wet with, because in here this is simply a plant spray. There's nothing fancy about this. And in here I've got a mixture of water and this thing here. This is Eucalan, and this is a washing detergent, but it's a leave-in detergent. You don't have to rinse this out, and this actually makes your fabric very soft and also makes it smell very nice. Now if you don't have this, just using plain water is also good, but if you do happen to have this, this is really nice stuff. So in here I've got just a few like 1 or 2 pumps of this in here, and the rest is then filled with water. So I'm going to use that on my squares. So that's what you need to block. You need the foam board or a foam mat. You need pins. You need water and something to spray with. And if you have Eucalan, add a little bit of that to your bottle, and then you're ready to go. So to block this first square, what I'm going to start with, I'm just going to make it a little bit wet. So I'm just going to a little bit spray on it. I'm not going to make it extremely wet, just a bit damp, and that'll help me just to flatten it out and get it into the shape that I want it to. And after that I'll spray it more to make it even more wet. So I'm going to start by just pinning it down from the corners, and at this point you want to make sure not to overstretch, because so you don't want to go like that. So just to bring it into shape but not overstretch. That's important, and you've got to kind of feel this, because at what point is the fabric being stretched too much, and at which point is it just right. It's like the Goldilocks story, not too little and not too much, just right. And I'm going to pin it down from the corners, and then I'm going to measure it, because I want this to be square, and I'm at about 12.5 centimeters, and you want this to be equal. So you see here I'm slightly more this way than I am the other way. See, So I've got this side I've got 13 and that side I've got 12, so that tells me that I just need to bring this back a little bit. There we go. To 12 and I'm at about 12 and a half. Now what's important is that all your squares are the same size. It doesn't have to be 12 and a half like it is for me, because your gauge will determine exactly what the size of your square is. But you do want it to be square, and you want all your squares to be the same size. And now what I'm going to do is going to ease this out and give it a few extra pins, and just because now I know my corners are good, I can just bring this out. And you can, by the way, you can never have too many pins in your work, so don't be cheap on the pins. There's no such thing as too many pins when you're blocking. And you pin it down exactly into the shape that you want it. And then, just going to give it one there. I'm happy with this. And then what I'm going to do, I'm going to make it spray a bit more. And that's it. And now it looks very nicely soaked. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave it like this to dry. It's as simple as that. So I've just done the one square. I'm going to do the same for all the others, and then I leave this until it's dry. And then when you remove it, it's going to be nice and crisp. I'll show you what they look like when it's dry. So your next step when you're making your blanket, after you've blocked all your squares, is to join them. Now you're going to be joining the little squares, so you have a lot of these little squares. You're going to be joining these squares to make a larger square, like this. And then when you have these, let me say these joined 4 squares, you're going to join these 4 to your large square in a certain pattern. So for example, see here I have 4 of these. So I'm going to be joining them in a certain pattern. I've got all my squares here, so I've got the way that I want to join them. So I'll be showing you these joins. First I'll show you how to join the little squares to make a large square, and then we've done all of that. So when we've done all of this, we've joined all of these, I'll show you how to join these together, because we're going to be using a different join for that. But first, the little squares. I want to join these 4 little squares in this way. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with a slip knot on my hook. So any color yarn, and it's actually, if you want to, you can choose one of the colors that you have here on the outer edge of the square, or you can use a different color. If you use a color that's the same as the outer edge of one of the squares, your join will be less visible. But I'm going to use just a random color to join. So I'm going to make a slip knot. So this is the same as you made for the first round of the square, and put that on your hook. Now to join the squares, I'm going to start on this side. I'm just going to put these 2 away for the moment. So I'm going to take these 2, and I've got the right sides facing me, and I'm going to fold them double. So now I have the right sides on top of each other, and if you look at the outside, you see the wrong side. So this is the back facing you, and on the other side the same. With the hook, with the yarn on my hook, I'm going to insert this through both of the corners of the square. You see, here's a corner space on the square, and here's a corner space. It's a little bit tight there, but there's the corner space. So insert my hook through this corner and through this corner here. I'm just going to zoom in a little bit. I think that'll help you to just see a little bit better what I'm doing. So again, let me just grab, so this is the corner space here and the corner space here. Then bring everything together. I'm going to hold my yarn tight. Grab your yarn from the back, bring it all to the front, so through both corners, and then yarn over and pull through. We've just made a double crochet. Chain 3. 1, 2, 3. And now we're going to come to the next chain spaces. So insert your hook through this chain space of the first square and come to the back and go to that second square. So you see you've got all of them. Then again, grab your yarn from the back, bring it to the front and complete the double crochet. Again, chain 3, 1, 2, 3, then move over to the next space, this space and that space, and again do the same, double crochet. Again, 1, 2, 3, and now we're on the other side, we're on the corner here, so on this side and that side, and complete the double crochet. Now if you open up the square, you'll see these stripes where you've joined the squares together. Perfect, that's exactly what you want. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to continue. Let me zoom out, then I'll show you exactly what I mean. Just made these 2 squares. Now I'm going to grab my next 2 squares, these 2. I'm going to fold this double again, so this is the way I was working. These are my next 2 squares. I'm going to take them facing each other. So again, fold it double exactly like these first two, the second 2 as well. Got them facing. And now I'm just going to continue on with this join. And I find it's a bit neater if I do a chain 1 between these 2 squares. So let me just zoom in again, then you can better see what I'm doing. Chain 1, and now I'm going to just jump over to the next 2 corners on the next square. So I'm going to insert through this corner space and here the second corner space, and again grab your yarn, bring it to the front and complete the double crochet. Now we're going to do exactly the same as we've done here. So chain 3, 1, 2, 3, come to your next space on this side and on the other one, so it's through the entire space. Grab your yarn, complete a double crochet. Chain 3, come to the next space and the double crochet, chain 3, and then you're at the corner again. Here, and complete the double crochet. You can cut your yarn and open up this loop. If you want to see what your work looks like right now, it looks like this. You just made that join there. Rotate your work with a quarter and fold flat again, because now I just grab these 2 yarn tails here, we're going to work this join exactly the same fashion. So I've still got the right sides facing each other. I'm going to start on the corner again and work the same join, exactly the same join that we just did. So let me just zoom in again that you can really see what I'm doing. Put a slip knot on my hook. And starting here in the corner space, through the first corner and the second corner, and complete the double. Chain 3, take the 2 spaces together with a double, chain 3. Just going a little bit faster because this is exactly the same as on the first side. And I just lost the loop. There we go. And chain 3. 1, 2, 3. And now it's a bit fiddly because here you've got all these this here in the middle. So we first go. So you're first going to be on the. So here's the join. So you're first in front of the join. Just insert your hook there through that space and complete the double. And here you really need that chain 1, and that is to jump over the join and then come to the other side of it, and again pick up the corner on this side. And where is it on the other one? And I can't. Oh, here it is. There it is. There's the corner space on the other side. And complete the double. As you see here, you can nicely see through the hole. And again, chain 3, and then it's just completing the join. So there in the middle, where you're crossing over, that can be a bit of a lot of stitches all in one place. So I really just check that you're in the right spaces at all times. And this is the corner. And then cut your yarn, open up this loop, and then you're finished. Let me just zoom out so then you can see exactly what your square looks like. Now these yarn tails, I'm going to leave them for the moment. I'm going to work them away when I've joined the entire blanket, because then I've just got more fabric to work it into. And you might just have to just pull this a little bit into shape that your edges nicely line up. But this is what your square looks like now. So now I've turned 4 little squares into one larger square. Do this for all your little squares. So first join them all like this, and then we'll take the next step and joining these to the large squares. When you have all your small squares assembled, look at your layout and make sure that you're happy with the way your squares are all laid out. I've just made a small sample, so I've got 3 by 3 squares. When you have them laid out, I suggest you take some stitch markers, I've got a few here, and use them to just connect these squares together. So just globally connect these together. And the reason for this, so you see I've got them joined here, the reason for this is then you don't accidentally have a wrong square at the wrong place when you're assembling things. So just assemble your squares the way you want them, just quickly, and then what we're going to do is we're going to be joining these up. I'm going to be showing you a double crochet join. I'll first show you in the one direction, but then it's in essence the same in the other direction, but I'll show you that. I'm using a double crochet join here. This is not the original join that's used in the pattern. The original join uses a slip stitch join, but I believe that is not really an easy join. It's a bit fiddly, and if you've never joined squares before, that is the slip stitch join is a hard join to do. I'll post a link in the video description for another project where I did use the slip stitch join. So if you want to do that, just click on that link. That's a project called Nuts About Squares. So I've demonstrated the join there. It's exactly the same as for this pattern, but I'm going to be showing you in this video, I'll be showing you a double crochet join. So just note that it's a different join to the one that's in the original pattern, because I believe it's more suitable if you've never done joining before. So off we go. We're going to start by joining our large squares and really assembling our blanket. I'm going to start with this join here. I've got the 2 right sides up. I'm just going to take them together. So I've got the wrong sides facing each other. So this is the opposite way to the way we did the small squares. So the wrong sides facing each other. I'm going to start with this join here. Again, it's slip knots on my hook, exactly the same way as before, and then through the corners, grab them and work a double crochet. Now this is exactly the same way as we've done the small squares, but now we're going to do things a little different. you have the 3 trebles here and the 3 trebles on the other side. We're going to work double crochets through those adjacent stitches. So I'm going to come through the first treble, and then on the other side I'm going to take the next treble and then work them together. Then again this treble and the next one. Oh, sorry, that's not the next one. And this is the next one. See, on both sides. So that's the center one. And then here's the third treble on either side. You can see I'm in the third treble. And complete the double. Next up is the chain space. Again, just work a double crochet through the chain space. So this is the same way we did with the small squares. And now again 3 trebles. So through this treble and the one on the other side. And then this one and on the other side. So it's really the adjacent stitches through the entire stitch, and then join them together, and then the chain space, and then the next 3, and then I'd like to show you, because then we're going to be at the like an intersection. So these are the 3 trebles, 2 and 3. And now we're at an intersection, because here I've got the chain 1 space, and on the other side I've got this join here between the 2 small squares. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to insert my hook through the chain space, and on the other side I'm just going to hook up. You can either hook up here, so in the join, or you can take the chain space here and or the corner space, I should say, the corner space here and then the corner space there. Either are good. What I'm going to do is I'm going to come to the corner space here. So first take the first corner. I'm going to work a double crochet through there, and then through the same chain space and the corner on the other side work another double. And this way I think you get the most neat join here. So on the one side you've got 2 stitches in the chain space, and here you've got them in either of the corner spaces. And now you can continue with the trebles again. So here you've got the first treble and the first treble on the other side. That's then 1, 2 trebles and 3 trebles, and then the chain space again, and then 1, 2, 2 and 3, and then the next one here is again chain space, and we're almost to the corner. I just want to show you how to pick up the next 2 squares. So I've got the last 3 trebles. So this is a double crochet through every stitch, and then through the corners. So now you have this entire join here. My next 2 squares that I want to join are these 2 here. These 2, I want to join these 2. So I'm again going to fold them together with the wrong sides facing each other, and this is the line that I want to continue. And then it's exactly the same idea. We're going to start in the corner and then work every stitch, work a double crochet, and again a chain 1 just to jump over to the other side. And that's also the same as we did with the small squares. So just a chain 1, and then come through this corner square and through this corner square. And I've just snagged something that I shouldn't have. And now the same idea. So through the first treble and the first treble on the other side. And the same idea, 1 double crochet through every stitch. And then comes the corner, or the chain space. And then the next one. And then we have again that T-jump, which I'll show you in a moment. And of course, if you happen to have a set of 2 small squares next to one another, it's easier because then it's just the corners that line up. But in this case it's not. So here we are again with these 2 corners. So again, you can take it here in the middle, you can do that, or you can take this one and that one. I'm going to take a corner space here and then come to the chain space and then come to the next corner space and the chain space. So see, I'm here through the chain space and complete the second double. And now it's continuing until the end, and then you continue this. Oh, here, this is also interesting. See here, this is the chain 3 starting point. So here I'm just going to punch my hook in there in the beginning of the, so this is the top of the chain 3. So I'm going to insert my hook in there and then the next stitch. So that chain 3, it just counts as a normal stitch. And then here's the second treble, the one next to it. And the third. And you continue like this for all your joins. So you can work them all one by one. I'm going to continue here until I'm to that point. Let me just zoom out a bit, then you can really see what I've done. So I've now worked this join here. You can see I've done this join, and I'll continue here with the next squares next to here and everything. And then you rotate your work and you do exactly the same along this line. Again, starting in the corner, double crochets, and when you get here, just that chain 1 again to just bridge the gap. So the same as we have here, also you can go the other side. It's all the same. Whether you work in this direction or you work in that direction. So then you rotate and you fold, and then you can work this join. So this is time consuming, so work 1 stitch at a time. And when you have all your joins finished, then I'll show you what at least what my blanket looks like. So work all your joins and then we're ready for the border. When you've finished all your joins, this is what your blanket looks like. Depending on how many squares you have, of course, your layout will be different. Next step, last step, is a border. I'm going to start by doing a base round around the blanket. This round you should definitely do. And after that, you have an option to either do a simple border of double crochet stitches, I'll show you that, or do a more lacy border, the one that's part of the original pattern. For the base round of the blanket, you can start in any of your 4 large corners, because the blanket is going to have 4 corners. You're going to start in any one of those corners. In there, attach your yarn with a slip stitch, and I'm going to use the color that I'm going to use for the entire border, so that's the color that I'm attaching now. Chain 1. And then in the same space, make a double crochet. This is my corner stitch, this stitch. I'm going to rotate, and then in every stitch and every space going to work a double crochet. So that means here on these 3 trebles, through both loops, so through the entire stitch, work a double, comes a chain space, work a double in there, and then you continue until you get to the first join, which will be here, because I want to show you what to do here. I'm going to work with double crochet in every chain space and in every stitch until you get to the join, and almost to the corner. Here we go. Now we're at the join. So I've worked a double crochet on every stitch. Now we're at the first join. For every join you're going to be doing the same idea. So here this is the double crochet join, but here you have, for example, a join between the small squares, but the idea is going to be the same everywhere. In the one corner space you make a double, then on the join you make a double, and you make a double crochet on the corner of the next square. So in this corner space, work a double. Then on the join we work a double. So I've got here the join, so I just will hook up. Just pop your hook in there and just grab up a loop. And then come to the other side of the join and work a double crochet there as well. And these 3 stitches, you're going to have that on every join. And for the rest, it's a double crochet on every stitch or every chain space. So that means if I just quickly continue, so now we continue, work a double crochet on every stitch. So there's the trebles, that's the chain space. Here's the trebles, and there's a chain space, and then here's the 3 trebles. I'm just going a bit faster because I want to show you the next join again, because those are the places where things tend to be a bit more difficult. Now we're at a next join, and this is a join between small squares. And again, in the corner, double. Then here's the join. So now again, I'm just going to pop my hook in there. Let me see, I'm going to do it like this. That's going to be the easiest. And then in the next corner of the next square. So again, the 3 doubles. And continue, a double crochet on every stitch. And I'm going to continue with this until I'm at the corner. So depending on how many squares you'll have a different stitch count, but the idea will be the same. So continue with a double crochet on every stitch, and when you get to these joins you'll have these 3 like this next to one another until you're to the next corner of your blanket, and then we'll just go around the corner together. I'm almost to my first corner, and for the corner I just need these last few double crochets, so those last 3. And then this is the large corner of my blanket. In there, work 1 double and rotate and continue on your next edge. So in the corner you're going to have 1 stitch, only the one, and then continue. So with a double crochet on every stitch and making all of those joins. So this is then the second corner. You're going to do the same for the third and the fourth corner, and when you're all the way around you're going to join with this slip stitch. I'll just show you that slip stitch at the end. For the moment, go all the way around, do all those joins. Be sure to work 3 stitches there. So these 3 stitches here, for example, on this join, go all the way around, and then I'll just show you the slip stitch closing for this round. All the way around, that's there is the first stitch. I'm going to close on that stitch with a slip stitch. So there, that double crochet, close on that with a slip stitch. I've now done the base round. Now you can choose to either do the round of double crochets that I'll show you, or you can go to the fancy border. For round 1 of the double crochet border, I'm going to start where we are right now. So that's in this corner stitch. I'm going to do a chain 1, And then in that same stitch, so in that corner stitch there, going to work 3 double crochets. So that's 1, 2 and 3. Just 3 stitches. That center one of the 3, that's your new corner. Then we rotate just a little bit, and on this entire edge I'm going to work a double crochet on every stitch. And this is just very relaxing. Just work a double crochet on every stitch until you get to your next corner stitch. So I'm going to work a double crochet until, you see this is quite a stretch, until you get to your next corner. You see here, here's my next corner, that stitch there. I'm going to work a double crochet all the way, and this is quite a stretch, and I'll see you over here. I'm almost to the corner. I've worked these double crochets. See, I've got 2 more to do, and then I'm here at the corner. That's that 1 corner double crochet. I'm going to work 3 doubles in that stitch. First, here on the last 2 stitches, work a double on each. And now I'm in the corner stitch. In that stitch, work 3 doubles. So 1, 2, and here's number 3. So you work 3 doubles in that corner stitch. And again, the center one of these 3, that's your new corner. Just going to turn my work a little bit, and then we repeat. So that means on every stitch you work a double until you get to your next corner, where you again will work 3 doubles in the 1 stitch. Go all the way around, repeat that all the way around. And then when you're right at the beginning, so that's here, when you're right back to the beginning, we just close on there with a slip stitch, but I'll show you how to do that as well. For the moment, a double in every stitch and 3 in the corner. When you're all the way around, the last thing you need to do is make a slip stitch in the first stitch. Now you see here are the 3 doubles we started with. In that first double, just go in there and make a slip stitch, and then you're finished with a simple and lovely double crochet border. You can cut your yarn and open up your loop, and then your blanket is all done. Work away your final yarn tails. If you have them to the front of your work, just pull them to the back, then your blanket is finished. I hope this was a useful video for you, and I hope your blanket turned out beautiful. I hope to see you again soon for a new project.